안녕하세요. Alinan Gulub. We are the Group 8 and we are presenting the Korean cuisine. But before that, we will first introduce ourselves and second, we will give you some trivia about Korea. First, the introduction. 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 Ma.Mercalla입니다. 만나세요 반갑습니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 마린입니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 준멜입니다.
And the second part is the trivia. We will give you four trivia about Korea. First, Koreans are 1 year older when born. You've probably heard of the notion that South Koreans will always be older than everybody else because they consider themselves a year old the moment they come out of the womb. South Koreans celebrate their birthdays on the date they were born just like everyone else, but their age won't change until the new year, which is every 1st of January. If you want to know your Korean age, you just need to subtract your year of birth from the current year, then add 1. Second trivia is there's a special day for singles. So, dili lang mga couples ang may special days. Here's the thing. The tradition of celebrating the Day of Hearts twice also exists in Japan, which gives South Korea and Japan a unique thing in common. But South Korea takes it up a notch by offering single people a special day too, or at least a day where they can comfort themselves amidst their singleness. This event is called Black Day, celebrated on April 14 each year. Third, there are more than 200 types of kimchi in South Korea. You will never see a Korean restaurant that doesn't serve kimchi. Kimchi for Koreans is like rice for Filipinos. They love their kimchi so much that they come up with 200 documented types of kimchi to date, all with their own different flavors. Koreans don't just serve as a side dish or banchan in South Korea. They innovated by incorporating it in burgers, pizza, and even pancakes. Last is, red ink also alludes to death. In Korean culture, red ink is used to write the names of the dead and is hardly acceptable to be used on any other occasion, unless you want someone dead. That means you should just stick in black or blue pens when you're traveling to South Korea. Heck, use any other color to write except for red, because Koreans might misinterpret your intentions if they see you writing their names in red ink. So this is all the trivias that we give to you. And then now we will tackle about the Korean cuisine. Korean cuisine history and geography. Geography in South Korea. North and South Korea form a peninsula that extends from the northeastern border of China into the ocean, parallel to Japan. Korea's cuisine is inspired by the agriculture and the seas surrounding it, namely the East China Sea and the Sea of Japan. South Korea's fertile plains are perfect for grounding rice and staple grain that accompanies most meals, and the seas are rich with tasty seafood like king crab and squid. What is the historical food in Korea? Korean meals have historically been served with bap or cooked rice, cooked or dishes with broth, kimchi, and banchan or the side dishes, to be consumed at the same time. As traditionally, baking or frying were not common cooking methods. Korean tended to use fermenting, boiling, blanching, seasoning, and pickling. Where did Korean food originated? Originating from ancient agricultural and nomadic traditions in Korea and southern Manchuria. Korean cuisine has evolved through a complex interaction of the natural environment and different cultural trends. Korean cuisine is largely based on rice, vegetables, seafood, and at least in South, meats. What influenced Korean cuisine? Chinese and Japanese invasion during the 14th through 20th century gave rise to a culinary influence on Korea that remains today. Like the Chinese and Japanese, Koreans eat rice with almost every meal and use chopsticks. Historically, China and Japan had to boil their water for it to be fit to drink. So, sa una pa na panahon, ang Korea is gi-invade sa Japan and Chinese. And then through that period of invasion, ang Korean na-adapt na nila kung unsay culture or unsay way of um, eating sa Japanese and Chinese. Mostly Koreans are forced to do and kanaang sunod sa culture sa Japanese and Chinese that period. So, there are three kingdoms in Korea. The Three Kingdoms period, 57 BCE to 668 CE, was one of the rapid cultural evolution. The kingdom of Goguryeo in 37 BCE to 668 CE was located in the northern part of the peninsula along much of modern-day Manchuria. The second kingdom, Baekje, 18 BCE to 660 BCE, CE, was in the southwestern portion of the peninsula and the third kingdom is Silla, 57 BCE to 935 CE, was located at the southeastern portion of the peninsula. Each region had its own distinct set of cultural practices and foods. For example, in Baekje was known for cold foods and fermented foods like kimchi. The spread of Buddhism and Confucianism through cultural exchanges with China during the 4th century CE began to change the distinct cultures of Korea. Korea have three kingdoms, which are the Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. These kingdoms was ruled by great and wise kings. The Goguryeo is the biggest among the two kingdoms. During this time, the Korean cuisine was made and established. For Goguryeo period, during the latter Goryeo period, the Mongols invaded Goryeo in the 13th century. Some traditional foods found today in Korea have their origins during this period. The dumpling dish, mandu, grilled meat dishes, noodles dishes, and the use of seasoning such as black pepper all have their roots in this period. Goguryeo is the most wider kingdom among the two kingdoms. It has a lot of connections and it has a big trading system among the two kingdoms. Goguryeo has a lot of power compared to Baekje and Silla. For Joseon period, agricultural invasion were significant and widespread during this period, such as the invention of rain gauge during the 15th century. During 1429, the government began publishing books on agriculture and farming techniques, which includes Nong Sa Jaksul, literally straight talk on farming, an agricultural book compiled under King Sejong. The opening of Korea to the Western world brought further exchange of culture and food. Western missionaries introduced new ingredients and dishes to Korea. Joseon elites were introduced to these new foods by way of foreigners who attended the royal court as advisors or physicians. This period also saw the introduction of various seasoning imported from Japan via Western traders and alcoholic drinks from China. Last period is the colonial period to modern period. Japan occupied the Korean peninsula from 1910 to 1945. Many of these agricultural systems were taken over by the Japanese to support Japan's food supply. Land changes resulting from the Japanese occupation include combining small farms into large-scale farms, which lead to larger yields. Rice production increased during this period to support the Japanese Empire's war efforts. Many Koreans, in turn, increased the production of other grains for their own consumption. Meals during the Japanese occupation were quite varied. Koreans usually eat 2 meals a day during the cold seasons and 3 during the warm seasons. For the lower classes, satiety rather than quality was most important. Those in even lower economics levels were likely to enjoy only a single bowl of white rice each year, while the remainder of the year was filled with cheaper grains such as the millet and barley. For the Korean middle and upper classes during the occupation, things were quite different. Western food began emerging in the Korean diet, such as white bread and commercially produced staples such as pre-cooked noodles. The Japanese occupational period ended after the defeat of Japan during World War II. So, the food history of the Korean cuisine. Korean food is also heavily influenced by revolutionary changes in world cuisines that occurred after 1500s AD. The European conquest of the Americas led to a worldwide distribution of new foodstuffs. The best example of Korea is chili. As native to Central and South America, it was spread across the world by Portuguese and Spanish merchants. Indian and Southeast Asian cuisines without chilies are unmanageable nor in Korean. So, ang Korean daw is mahilig sila ng spicy foods. Dili sila makakaon or dili sila makaagwanta kung walay chili. So, chili pastes are absolutely staples of all Korean tables and many food preparations. Although many people think of Korean cuisine as hot, in reality, chili sauces are not loaded onto every dish but added as flavor enhancement. So, dili daw tanan pagkaon sa Korea is spicy. Nay uban na spicy, then naapod uban nga ang chili paste or ang chili powder is for flavors lang daw. Like most Korean dishes, flavors and ingredients are flexible. So diners can add as much or as little flavoring as they like. Some like is hot, some do not. So we have here. Korean cuisine is known for having some of the healthiest foods on the menu. The dishes are simple but have pungent flavors and odors. This is mainly because many Korean banchan or side dishes are made by fermentation, which adds intense and savory flavors to the food items. Although Korean cuisine has evolved due to the cultural changes, here are some dishes that are essentially to the Korean heart and digestive tract. So, kanina mga Korean dishes is mo ni siya ang kasagaran naa sa menu. Hangover stew. Hangover stew. As the name suggested, the hangover stew or salguk is a soup to chase a hangover. It is made from a beef broth with delicious bean sprouts, cabbage, radish, and chunks of congealed or ox blood. This bold stew works wonders by kick-starting one's inactive brain in the morning after a hangover. Second is kimchi. This is one of the most common and famous dishes in Korea. Kimchi, a staple food in Korean cuisine, is a traditional side dish of salted and fermented vegetables such as napa cabbage and Korean radish, made with a widely varied selection of seasoning, including gochujang, spring onions, garlic, ginger, and gochujang, etc. It is also used in a variety of soups and stews. Though there are many varieties of kimchi, the most basic one is made by salting and preserving fermented cabbage, adding spice paste, garlic, ginger, pepper, and scallion, then finally packing the kimchi into the jar. So, ang kimchi is na siya a little bit or flavor na with chili. Next is tofu stew. This is one of the most popular stews in Korean cuisine that has an unexpected flavor combination made from soft tofu, clams, and an egg in a spicy broth. It is overall in a spicy stew, but the soft tofu that breaks into chunks in the stew. Next is samgyeopsal, and this is one of the most popular food in Korea and also in here in the Philippines. Samgyeopsal, also known as grilled pork belly, is a type of gu in Korean cuisine that is mixed with a spicy red chili pepper paste and grilled and dipped in a mixture salt and sesame oil before consuming. Next is jajangmyeon. This is originally a Chinese dish, but the Koreans have modified it by taking the noodles and making it a bit thick. It is such an important dish for Koreans that they eat it at least once a week. Next is chemek. Chemek is not actually a dish, but a combination of two popular mundane foods, chicken and beer. The name is short for chicken and makju, or beer. This pairing makes the dish so popular that millions of Koreans eat it every weekend. Did you know that Korean has a rich history of beer making, including the popular Hype beer brand? Next is Janjang. Also known as soy sauce crab, this slightly tangy, pungent, and tantalizingly bitter dish may taste weird to the first timers, but the South Koreans love jinjang so much that they would keep eating more rice so that they can have more jinjang. So kani siya na dish is fresh crab ang gamit.
Cooking principles. Next yan. There are three principles of Korean cuisine. First is the nature and time, essential to Korean cooking. Second, a foundational philosophy of Korean cuisine is yak, sik, dok, won. Third is the Korean food is infused with the concept of balance. Nature and time essential to Korean cooking. Korean food is seasonally driven, centered on vegetables, but also featuring seafood and meat from the shores and robust landscape of the peninsula. Traditional Korean cooking employs and ways to preserve ingredients for year-round enjoyment. Fermented products like kimchi and junks are foundational in the winter. Bold condiments not only characterize the aesthetic flavors of Korean cuisine, they also provide essential nutrients and are beneficial for digestive health. Next, please. And is a foundational philosophy of Korean cuisine is yang food. Literally means food is medicine. In other words, health begins what we eat. Kimchi, for example, not only contains healthy fiber and probiotics, but has shown in scientific studies to help support a flourishing but bioimmune system. In addition, Korean cuisine's abundance of healthy seafood in a robust spectrum of vegetables and herbs like ginseng contribute to a balanced, nutritious diet. Next, please. Lastly, the Korean food is infused with the concept of balance. While much of Korean cooking is famous for its heat, other staples like aromatic broths, rice, and the delicate and the skin of mandu are more nuanced and mild. Signature dishes like bibimbap balance carbohydrate, fiber, and protein in one satisfying serving. A balanced feast fosters the Korean concept of papsang, which means a table set up for shared enjoyment, the foundation for every good meal. Next, please. Methods used in Korea. Next yan. Methods used by Koreans. First, we have fermentation. Fermentation is the process of fermenting in which food flavors and preserved food. Second, it means is of vegetables. The most popular Korean dish is, for instance, consists of seasoned vegetables that have been pickled in cold water. In time past, the vegetables were buried in clay pots in winter for preservation, then transferred to wheels or streams in warmer months. Now, pickled vegetables are refrigerated. In fact, most Korean restaurants have dedicated refrigerators for pickled vegetables. These are eaten raw and contain most of the nutritional benefits. Next, please. Next is stewing. In Korea, beverages are not often served with meals. Instead, there is some soup given with breakfast in the form of broth or beef. This soup is using a small heat source set at the table. It continues stewing while it's consumed to keep it salty and thick. Moreover, Korean soup is rather spicy. Soup will make you feel full quickly on a low-calorie yet satisfying meal. Fourth is grilling. This marks one of the most popular alternatives for Korean cooking. Grilling is used for most Korean meats and seafood. Done.
Um, Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Jumer Cedric, and I will be your reporter for this chapter. So in this chapter, we will giving you a example of traditional dishes of Korean cuisine. from appetizer to dessert up to side dishes. So let's begin with galbitang. Galbitang or short rib soup is a variety of guk or Korean soup made primarily from beef short ribs along with stewing beef, raw dish, onions, and other ingredients. The short ribs or galbi also refers to grilled short ribs in Korean barbecue, while the suffix tang is another name for guk. So next slide please. So next we have here bulgogi or chicken bulgogi. Chicken bulgogi, also known as dak bulgogi, is often confused with dak galbi, another spicy Korean chicken dish. While dak galbi is more of chicken and vegetables pan-fried all together with a spicy sauce in one skillet or skillet. Dak bulgogi is solely chicken without any vegetables and cooked over a grill. So next dish, please. Now, let's proceed to Korean lettuce salad or romaine sangchujo gotjeori. Sorry for that. So, a green salad or green leaf salad, another name for garden salad, is most often composed of leafy vegetables such as lettuce varieties, spinach, or rocket arugula. So, next slide, please. So, what is romaine sangchujo? A jutjori. Sancho translates and refers to green or red leaf lettuce unless a different type of lettuce is specified. For our salad, we use romaine. So Korean will know and understand our salad as romaine sancho jutjeori. Or jutjeori refers to a kimchi that made to eat fresh without fermentation. Jut translates to out or outer and juri translate to something salted or pickled. Next slide, please. So next we have here dubo kimchi. Dubo kimchi, it is a Korean dish consisting of tofu and stir-fried kimchi. Soft, warm blanched tofu is served with well-fermented tanji beichu kimchi stir-fried with pork mix as well much anju for either soju or makgeolli. Next slide, please. So now let's proceed to banchan or side dish banchan for Korean. So list of banchan. We have here Korean sticky rice. Sweet rice or glutinous rice is a very popular ingredient in Korean cuisine. In Korea, it is called chapsal, which literally means sticky rice since it becomes soft and sticky when cooked. Next dish, please. So next we have here gamja bokkyum. Korean pan-fried potatoes is a common Korean potato side dish. Banchan in Korean. So that you often see in many Korean homes. You can stir fry the potato alone or with other way you will have a simple yet tasty banchan to add on to your Korean meal. Next slide. So next we have here kongnamul. Kongnamul muchim is one of the most commonly served side dishes or banchan in Korean homes. This nutty, crunchy, and delicious side dish is my absolute favorite. It's also one of the classic vegetables used in bibimbap, adding a nice crunchy to the dish. Usually, this dish is speedily seasoned to savor the natural nutty flavor of the soybean sprouts. Next dish, please. So, lastly, we have here oy bokyum Oy bokkyum is a stir-fried cucumber side dish that quick and easy to make. Oy is cucumber and bokkyum means stir-fried. The cucumbers are initially pickled in some fine sea salt to drain the water out, then squeezed. Soon after that, it is stir-fried briefly in a pan, then it is coated with sesame seeds and sesame oil. So that would be all for today. Thank you for listening.
Okay, before we end our topic, let me show you some video clips about Korean cuisine.
From the modern metropolis of Seoul, where next generation chefs are redefining classic Korean dining, to Korea's tranquil Jeju Island, where seafood hotpots overflow with delicacies from the deep. From hidden barbecue in Seoul's bustling Mahjongdong meat market, where magnificently marbled Hanu beef sizzles on tabletop grills, to the verdant hillside farms of Bongori, where we'll take a lesson in fermented flavors from kimchi master Haeun Lee. The world of food takes us places beyond imagining. From the Baru, where monk chef Daeon shows us traditional Korean temple cuisine and a lotus-themed lunch, to the private cooking school and culinary workspace of chef Young Young Ji, where we'll learn to make a classic Korean soup. Join us on this appetizing tour of South Korea as we reveal the lesser-known flavors of this Asian region that is attracting diners from around the world. Our guide to South Korea is Jia Choi, CEO of Ongo Food Communications and Ongo Food Tours. We'll also be joined by Steve Gillova, a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, a certified master chef, and the executive chef for Unilever Food Solutions. New skills and inspiration. The more we see, the more we grow. Get ready for a chef's tour of South Korea.
Dito po nagtatapos ang topic namin ngayong araw. Anyong, 날 봐요. 감사합니다.